When building objects in our applications, we generally start with primitive data types such as integers, booleans, and strings. These primitives are then combined in various ways into more complex custom objects. If you dig deep enough into even the most complex object in your application, you'll eventually find these primitive data types. SQL is a little different in this regard. It still has a variety of data types, but they can't be combined in the same ways you might with an object-oriented language. SQL doesn't have the same facilities for creating deeply nested structures the way an object-oriented language does. Instead, all data in SQL is stored in columns which are assigned one of the data types. The columns are then collected into a table. If you want to create more complex structures, you either add more columns, use other built-in data types, or add additional tables. While there are facilities for creating custom types in SQL, they are more limited and we will not be covering them here. The primitive data types you'll find in SQL are similar, but not always identical to what you'd find in your typical programming language. It's important to recognize that depending on your language of choice, some of the data types may not map directly, if at all. For example, Node.js only supports 32-bit integers. However, the default integer type in Cockroach DB is a 64-bit integer. This means that when you translate a 64-bit integer into Node.js, it often gets translated to a string instead. It's important to make sure you understand how the various data types will be mapped by your database driver or ORM. So what are some of the more common data types you might use in SQL? Coming from other programming languages, you'll find many familiar data types such as bool, int, and float. However, there are a few key differences that you might want to watch out for. Int is an alias for int8, which is a 64-bit integer. However, there are other smaller integer types as well, such as int2 for 16-bit integers and int4 for 32-bit integers. You might decide to choose one of the smaller sizes if you need to optimize your disk usage or for compatibility with a specific language. Float represents a floating point number, as you might expect. Much like an integer, you can specify different sizes of floats, such as float4 or float8. Decimal represents a fixed point number. It's preferred for situations such as currency, where the number of decimals is always the same. Strings are used to represent an arbitrary string of text. However, many SQL dialects don't support string. Cockroach DB provides aliases from string to varchar and char in order to maintain compatibility with the Postgres dialect. SQL also includes specific data types for recording time. These include date, time, and timestamp. Time and timestamp also have time zone specific implementations designated with the TZ suffix. Other data types of interest include array, JSONB, and UUID. You can find a complete list of supported types in the Cockroach DB documentation.